If you haven't seen it by now, Netflix's Social Dilemma is probably one of the most talked about and popular documentaries of 2020. The movie critically explores the negative side effects that social media has on society, from mining user data for profit to engineering addictive behaviors, to more serious and consequential things like mass misinformation campaigns, perpetuating conspiracy theories, to even increasing suicide rates in teens. Personally, I think the movie did a really good job at explaining and illustrating how these algorithms actually worked, what their purpose was, and how they kind of functioned behind the scenes. So the feedback that I've seen for the movie is generally mixed. The suicide rates are kind of being contested, whether the true cause is really social media. And probably the biggest one is the infamous bicycle anecdote, where Tristan Harris claimed that with the invention of the bicycle, nobody really had any negative feedback or objections, which was not true, as the internet showed us. But my biggest problem with the movie is that it doesn't give us any viable solutions. I mean, sure, they make a few recommendations like don't bring your phone in the bedroom at night, don't give your kids too much screen time, but those things aren't really solutions. They're band-aids, more or less, to a more severe problem that's not really being addressed here. At one point, an expert actually said that just because you know how this thing works and that it's addictive, it doesn't actually do anything to stop you from being addicted to it in the first place. I think the anecdote he gave was that he would spend his day at Pinterest engineering addictive behavior, and then he would go home and would be glued to his phone, neglecting his family and kids. So what that tells me is that if an insider who's helping engineer this addictive behavior can't escape the addictive behavior himself, why would the filmmakers think we can? So what I want to do is explore a speculative design future of social media, one in which we retain the beneficial and advantageous aspects of these platforms while getting rid of the negatives. So let's start out with the most obvious one, and that is the business model. There's a saying that bad business models lead to bad outcomes. So the biggest problem with the current business model is that it's predicated on infinite growth, which means that quarter after quarter, these companies are expected to post bigger and bigger and bigger profits. There's no end to it, which doesn't take a genius to see that it's not going to lead to any place worth going. So one direction we can explore is a non-for-profit organization. Basically what this means is that through donations or selling merchandise, you essentially make enough money to pay off the engineers, the designers, the managers, keep everyone employed while providing a great service. This is being done by the popular messaging platform Signal. A social network that's currently doing this is Mastodon, and it's not just a non-for-profit, but it's also open source and decentralized, which means there's no central point of attack. Anybody can spin up an instance and create their own chat group. The app is currently exploding in popularity in the Chinese market due to the censorship the country has. The second model we could explore is cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. Sites like Steemit or DTube actually allow and enable users to make money by posting content. Now, the more upvotes the content receives, the more cryptocurrency you get paid in return. This is a radical departure from today's paradigm where Facebook and Twitter make money off your content as opposed to paying you for it. Outside of business model purposes, the benefit here is that there's no central repository of user data, no central way hackers can get in and swoop all of the passwords and emails that are associated. Let's address some of the behavioral aspects of social media's negative impact. Let's start with attention seeking and inducing fear of missing out, or FOMO. I think the culprit of both of these is the like. So when I approach a design challenge, I take all my pre-existing notions and I throw them in the trash, and I start questioning everything from the ground up. So starting with the like, we all know it's a button you press when you have a positive feeling towards a piece of content, which in turn serves a dopamine hit to the creator. But let's think about it. Why are likes infinite? What if you only had 4 likes per day? How would that make you act and alter your behavior? Now, what I find interesting here is the second order effect on the behavior of everybody else on the platform. Because if I only had 4 likes per day, that means that I'm less likely to like mediocre content, which in turn would force everybody else to step up their content, right? You're less likely to post something if you know it's not going to receive any likes. So the social network Peepeth actually has this concept already implemented where you only get 1 like per day. Now, another interesting opportunity for a business model arises from maybe selling likes. Why is a like free? You ever thought about it? What if you had to buy an extra pack of 10 likes per week if you really wanted to engage with your audience or your network? Moving on to the next problematic behavior that these platforms induce, and this one is addiction. Now, we all know from firsthand experience that these platforms could be an enormous time sink and hours can disappear in your day without you even noticing it. Recently, Instagram has implemented this feature that says you're all caught up, but I think we could take it a step further and ask ourselves, what if there was a social network that only had a 1 hour window every single day, and that's it? You can only use it for 1 hour, at which point the app simply blocks you out. What if we had a social media platform that was not accessible on a mobile device? What if it forced you to sit on a laptop at home? Over the years, I created a few concepts that address this. One of those is iOS Zen. You could read it down below in the description. Moving on to what I call the awkward audience problem. And this is referring to the phenomenon of, over the years, adding strangers, family members, ex-girlfriends, old coworkers, that one guy you met that one time and that one vacation you took. And what you end up with is this weird crowd of people that you don't necessarily even feel close to, which is kind of preventative to open up and share content because it feels odd. Back in the day, Google's social network, Google+, had this concept of groups, which essentially means that every time you added somebody, you can place them in your Google circles, coworkers, soccer club, family members, etc. This keeps and compartmentalizes all your contacts and connections into nice little buckets where you could be more comfortable interacting with a group at a time. The second problem, I think, is size. So Facebook currently has a limit of 5,000 friends, which is absolutely ridiculous. As we all know, nobody has 5,000 friends. No one can even have 1,000 friends. Actually, the sociologist Robin Dunbar has conducted experiments that have resulted into what we now know as a Dunbar number, which states that a person can only sustain an upward of 150 or so social connections. Now, the solution to this was beautifully executed by a smaller social network that aimed to be more intimate called Path. Unfortunately, Path went down under, but at the time, they only allowed a maximum of 50 connections. Over the years, it kind of tripled that to 150, but still, I really love the concept of having a Dunbar number as the limit to how many people you can add. And that really forces you to pick and choose who you want to be connected with. Now, another side to this problem is that human connection is malleable. It changes and evolves over time. Some grow stronger, some weaken. The problem with Facebook is that a friendship is permanent, meaning if I've added somebody and I haven't really spoken to them in 7 or 8 years, Facebook may not show them, but there's still a chance that my content might end up on their newsfeed and vice versa. So what if we put an end to that? Now, back in the day, there was actually an app called Buzz that functioned in this exact manner, where it challenged the notion of permanent connections by deleting anybody you haven't talked to in the last 72 hours off your contact list. And maybe, just maybe, we can have some sort of a mechanism to verify that you're still close with somebody. Let's say you haven't had any engagement in over a year or 6 months, or even crazier, maybe it was a physical aspect where if your phones hadn't been in proximity to each other in the same GPS coordinate, you'd be unfriended. And what that would mean is that you would only end up with people you physically interact with, leading to a more close and intimate set of friends. The last category is the trickiest in my opinion, and this is really informational content. This is where you have conspiracy theories, echo chambers, argumentation, and overall divisiveness in society occur. Now, this is probably the hardest one to solve for, but I think there's a bunch of interesting experiments we could run. One of those is eliminate the ability to post and share links. When you think about online conflict and divisiveness that arises from politics or current events, a lot of that really boils down to outside sources in the form of articles. When people are disagreeing on a political stance, some but few are actually taking the time to write something up. Most are actually just resharing other articles, and that's how I think fake news gets in the mix a lot. Eliminating the ability to share links might be an interesting experiment worth considering. It is a slippery slope because this could lead to a really dry platform with little interaction. The next layer might be that you allow links on the platform, but you use machine learning to censor out anything related to politics. Now, the idea here is to encourage you and incentivize conversations centered around your personal life as opposed to discussion on external events that are happening in the world. And maybe instead of having a maximum amount of characters you can type, we had a minimum. Maybe you could only post a minimum of 150 words at a time, which would force you to sit down and really thoughtfully express some idea. The other thing we could question also is instantaneousness. Twitter allows you to pull out your phone and in the moment, whatever pisses you off or whatever emotion is kind of taking over your brain, you can just blurt out anything out on the internet instantaneously. Should you be able to do that? What if you couldn't? What if everything you submitted and posted had an automatic delay of like an hour or two? Or maybe everything you posted was shared at 6 p.m. every day on the dot. But the important thing here is to keep in mind that these are experiments. These are not prescriptive solutions. These are just what ifs. And I think if we wanted to design the next phase of evolution for social networking, we need to start asking a lot of what if questions and question first level principles if we wanted to emerge with a better, healthier alternative to what social media has to offer today. With that being said, if you're somebody who has any ideas around this or wants to make it a reality, you're an engineer, you're a designer, please join the Discord. It's a community of builders and like-minded individuals, so drop in and say hi. Do consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon.